some of this will make more sense to cover when Judy is here, next board meeting. So there were just some questions in here that I had for her in this regard. A lot of what's in here is the main themes that are duplicated throughout the handbook.
Tim,
what?
Can you talk a little louder in the background?
We're having
It's very hard to hear you and understand you back here. If you could speak up a little bit, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Sure. There were, when I did a review of the handbook, and there were just some proposals that I was going to bring forth to the board. One of the things that I was looking at was be a little more consistent in the full-time and the part-time language. We have full-time language that right now defines an employee of 37.5 hours a week as full-time, and less than that is part-time. But there really isn't anything in the benefits that is really tied to part-time, at least that I could tell. It's more in FTEs or the number of hours worked, either scheduled for salary in FTE or the actual hours worked in hourly. And so one of the things that I would propose, and that I wanted the board to consider, is defining a full-time employee as an employee that works 30 hours or more a week, or a 0.75 FTE. And then a part-time would be any employee that would work at that below that level. And with the idea that some of the benefits that are offered could be tweaked for full-time benefit and maybe not be offered for part-time. So this is, again, I didn't have anything concrete. This is just something I wanted the board to consider and take a look at. Like there were some things in here with regard to, in the handbook it says that let's see, what would this be? Oh, the handbook states that this doesn't discriminate on the arrest record or conviction record. However, in the criminal background policy, it states that employment may be refused or suspended or terminated if an individual is subject to a pending criminal charge, is convicted of a criminal offense which is substantially related to the circumstances of his or her particular job. So I just thought that was a point that maybe could be more consistent with the handbook. Instead of saying that we won't discriminate on that, I would propose that we remove that language, the arrest record or conviction record, because it seems to contradict itself in the criminal background check policy. There's a mention in here of the management. It mentions the, I don't have the exact page, page 44. Just as a, for instance, management rights, delineation of management rights. So my question would have been to Dr. Miller, is that the board? Is that the administration? Is that the board working with the administration? So again, some of these were just questions and clarifications. One of the things that's going to be going to take place in July of 12 is if both spouses work for the district and they're both on the health insurance, then one spouse would be on, they both be on the health insurance, but the other spouse would be eligible for the $6,800 reimbursement from the district for not taking the health insurance. And in July of 12, that's going to be eliminated, if I understand right, the way it was written in the handbook. So my proposal was, actually when this first came about,
let me correct my acknowledgement of that. That's one of the things that the board has asked us to consider.
Okay.
And I think, may I interject?
As I thought it said, go ahead.
When we looked at the handbook, when we first presented that to the board, we spent a lot of time this summer doing that. The one thing that we thought was really important is that we just get a foundation of a handbook that we can take to our staff, because every district staff throughout the state was probably more nervous about this than anything else that ever came about, because it's what are you going to do to us? And that's really important. And we are, to our staff's credit, I think we have entered this year in a mode or an attitude that let's try to work together to see how this thing's go forward. We know, and I have acknowledged to the staff on numerous occasions, that the board has asked us to look at health insurance, benefits, several things like that. I didn't get your proposal till late today, so I don't know exactly what it says. But I think it's important that we realize that we have hired a consultant to come in and do some of the consulting costs, which includes benefits, some of the things that you alluded to. And I think it's really critical that we give our staff an opportunity to be able to, if we're gonna cut a benefit or whatever we're gonna do with it, adjust it, you know, I think it's important that we get feedback from them and that we cost everything out. Right now, we have absolutely no idea what our budget will be for next year. Right. None. So I think to go and take a look at anything that might have a financial impact before we have some data and before we have our expert consultants come to us and say, here's what it looks like, I guess I would ask the board to caution that, and I hope that we take the approach that, as I said, when we approve the handbook, let's use this year as a guide to be able to say, what do we want to change in this? And so I don't know what all entails in all your proposals, but.
And I think the word proposal I might have been using was a little strong. I mean, this is really was a point for me to, because when we got this document, 121 pages, we admittedly didn't have a lot of time to review it. And of course, my first time through the whole thing anyway, I was really coming in from, what does all this mean? So when I put a proposal, I think really what I wanted to do is I just wanted to kind of bring it to the surface and have the board get it in, start talking about it. You know, what, because I agree with you, this is a transition year, and most of these things that were in here, you know, I think we should put in place in July or, you know, wait that time. There were some things that maybe we could have done sooner, but that's fine. So that was really the reason for me bringing this up, for just going through the document. So, but, and because I do think it is important, especially after the presentation we just had, you know, and that's kind of where I was coming up with full-time and part-time. You know, when you make a hiring decision, it's a big deal, and I think that the full-time employees get the full-time benefits, but if you don't have the need for a full-time person and that's a part-time employee, we may not have to incur the expense of all the benefit package on a part-time employee, or maybe we do, but not to the extent that we do now. I don't know. I don't have all the answers.
Well, I just wanted to bring it up, but I think that has to be driven by the budget. If Act 10 never came into play, we would always maintain the process of being able to look at staffing, student enrollment, those kinds of state aid, so on and so forth, to make budgetary decision, which is impacting what you're talking about in terms of staffing. So that's not any different, and I agree with your point of bringing awareness to all these things up here, and I think that's a real key. And I think that awareness has to come with a whole lot of data, a whole lot of reasons for doing things, because I think as a school district, we are very fortunate. This is just Steve Patz talking, and I think we didn't do what a lot of other school districts did to their staffs. And you just saw tonight through Wendy's presentation and people that spoke here tonight, you know, these people put in an incredible amount of hours, and I think when you have a handbook, which is really for them, you know, it's a guide for us as a district to be able to tell our staff what the guidelines are, but as early as last night, or as late as last night, Margaret, we talked about this, did we not? We have a committee that talks about different things in the handbook, and they had several questions that, you know, you're right, we need to take a look at how that's defined in the handbook and so on and so forth. So I guess what I'm saying is I encourage the board to allow this year to go through where we have a lot of dialogue, a lot of interaction, where we have data to make decisions, and that we be very cautious because we're dealing with people, we're dealing with a district, we're dealing with kids in the end, and a lot of the things that may or may not come out of a handbook decision by a board can impact those. And so I want us to be very cautious because I think we have a huge investment here. This document, Tim, I'm sure you put a lot of work into it, and I appreciate that. Let's proceed with caution, and let's make sure that we have all the cards on the table so we can really make good decisions.
Yeah, and I'm on board with all that, because I think we do need to take a comprehensive review on that. For instance, in looking in the handbook, just there's talking about consistency. If I looked at this right, I think it was in section 4, which was for occupational therapist, physical therapist, payroll coordinator, technical specialist, payroll specialist, whatever. Again, primarily looking at the insurances and the eligibility. As of September 1st, the district will pay 88% of the premium for a single or family plan for an eligible employee who is a salaried employee and has an assignment of 70% or greater. As of September 15th, the district will pay 88% of a premium for a single or family health plan for an hourly employee who is regularly scheduled to work 37.5 hours per week